Apple. Apple is in the news again. It's been just a few days past WWDC 2020 and Apple has announced that it will narrow down the use of Intel's x86 based processors and will instead use its in-house made Apple Silicon, which are basically ARM based processors for its next generation of Macs and Macbooks. Yeah, that very ARM-based processor found on cheap Android phones, iPhones, iPads, and every device that is designed keeping less power consumption in mind. So what's the fuss about? Will this puny little mobile processor be able to satisfy the needs of a power user in the long run? Because after all, people buy laptops and desktops for their heavy workflows, right? So to advocate Apple's decision of transitioning into this new system in the next 2 years, we need a solid backbone of data to support Apple's decision. So what's ARM? And what's this fuss about? Okay, story time, kids.
Long, long ago in the year of 1983, in the great lands of Britain, there was a company called Acorn Computers which built the first RISC or RISC-based processors.
Okay, let's cut the crap and get to the point. Acorn Computers in the year 1983 developed the first RISC or RISC-based processor, which stands for Reduced Instruction Set Computing, hence calling it Acorn RISC Machine or ARM, which in modern days has been spun off to Advanced RISC Machines. Its main advantage over the typically used CISC or complex instruction set computing was its efficiency to handle instruction sets, which is achieved by its ability to process an instruction set every clock cycle. RISC-based chips also enjoy a way simpler decoding method, which is aided by its ability to have data in a fixed size in its memory. But most importantly, RISC-based processors have way lesser transistors packed into them, which means an easier and cheaper production. And that'll definitely help Apple enjoy that sweet cash. And also for the first time, Apple's computers' performance won't be bottlenecked by a processor made by a third-party manufacturer. On the other hand, its main rival, the CISC-based processors, which are typically manufactured by Intel and AMD, lose out in the power efficiency department. And by lose out, I mean they are completely destroyed by them. So in a CISC-based architecture like x86, a huge surge of data hits the processor at one go. And since the instruction sets of a CISC-based processor do not have a fixed length, the processor thus struggles to decode it. And this struggle of decoding the data consumes immense amount of power, thus making the CISC-based processors unsuitable for mobile devices. And this forces the manufacturers to bottleneck the performance of the processor in order to consume less power. An ARM-based processor is designed keeping its specific requirements in mind, thus making its instruction sets way simpler and very well optimized, thus making the full use of the processor without wasting the sweet juice of the battery.
Okay, so the boring stuff is finally over.
Now, since the instruction sets for ARM and x86 are coded differently, how is Apple going to immigrate the most popular apps like Photoshop, Premiere and Maya into its new system? For third-party apps, Apple has created Universal 2. This will allow apps to run on both ARM and x86. But for the ease of the developers, enter Xcode. Xcode will help developers to code their apps for the new ARM-based system in a matter of days. For the apps that won't be able to get updated for ARM, Apple has created Rosetta 2. Rosetta 2 is basically an emulation software which will help the older Mac apps to run in the new chips. And for these older apps fail to get updated in Apple's 2-year transition period, they'll just get disappeared from the whole scene altogether. Also, good news for developers is Apple's developer forum, where all the developers who will sign the forum will get a Mac Mini running their A12Z chip to quickly get their apps up and running. Also take a note that Apple's messaging, FaceTime and pro-grade apps like Final Cut are already up and running in the new chips. Moreover, Adobe's Creative Cloud is already up and running for these new chips, which include Lightroom, Photoshop, Premiere, etc. Okay, if you're among those who are skeptical about these new low-powered ARM-based devices, let me tell you, these new chips ain't no slouch. And you know how Apple showed the power of these new chips off? By streaming the whole WWDC 2020 event by a machine running these new chips. They also showed sound of Autodesk Maya running seamlessly in this new chip. And for the gamers, Apple showed Shadow of the Tomb Raider, a modern day AAA title running buttery smooth in their new chip. So as a conclusion, ARM may look like the future and Apple has already put their bet on it. Although Apple will not ditch Intel as of now, as they have guaranteed regular updates over the coming years. And as of now, it'll continue to use Intel-based chips in its Pro-graded machines like the 27-inch iMac Pro, and the Big Daddy Mac Pro. Also being a factor that ARM-based chips are not good memory managers. So that is it for today, guys. Do check our social handles for fun tech memes, tech trends, and all the updates. So hit like if you liked it, subscribe if you loved it, and see you guys in the next one. Bye!